We have always known that Deion Sanders keeps those receipts, but I don't think college football was ready for him to actually use those receipts.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Whether you watch, listen, I appreciate you for tuning in. Let's have some fun. We are talking about Coach Prime's now viral interaction with multiple reporters from this past week. I think the reason I'm addressing it again, I'll just preface this because I know you guys are probably going to be like, why are we talking about this, blah, blah. I've had so many DMs, so many messages of people wanting me to address this more, address it further, because I touched on it a little bit last week on Friday. And I'm going to touch on it again this week, and I'm going to give you both sides of the spectrum, both sides of Coach Prime's perspective and also the perspective of the reporters and sort of the responsibility that you have as a reporter when it comes to interviewing a coach. And so if you guys weren't familiar, Coach Prime shut down a reporter from CBS and would not answer a question. The belief is that because of their affiliation with 24/7 Sports, who was the one that broke or kind of brought to light the story of Shiloh Sanders and his legal issues and bankruptcy and stuff like that. That's where that belief is from. There's also sort of a thought that he wasn't a fan of being ranked as, I think he was like the second worst coach in the Big 12 and one of the worst coaches in the Power 5 or Power 4, excuse me. So there was a belief that that was the cause of that. And then in terms of the other reporter from the Denver Post, I don't know him personally. I've never met him. I'm not going to pretend like I know what Coach Prime, like what story in particular Coach Prime is talking about. But there have been stories in the past where he has taken a more critical view on Coach Prime, and then based off of comments from long-standing Colorado fans, he has also frequently had, I want to say, like negative stories, but stories that didn't always depict Colorado in the brightest light, if you will. Now, I'm not saying that he is a Colorado hater. I think a lot of people forget that when you're a reporter, you're not covering the team as a fan, or at least in most cases you aren't, right? Like there's certain fan sites where it's like, okay, they are the voice of the fan and they cover the team as such. And then there's media conglomerates who it's like, okay, you're on this beat. We want you to cover them. And in covering programs sometimes in any sport, really, whether it's the NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLB, whatever it is, there are times where you have to ask uncomfortable questions. And at the same time, from Deion Sanders, Coach Prime's perspective, he doesn't have to answer any questions he doesn't want to. And he has shown that he remembers what people say and or write about him or his team or his family. And two, he has shown that he also remembers what people say. And so it's one of those things where as a reporter, you have to figure out a fine line of like, if you're going to write something, you have to know it's going to affect your relationship with that coach, whether or not that's fair, because you're doing your job just as much as they're doing their job. I mean, that's kind of part of the job. I'll give you guys a personal anecdote, personal example. My very first year out of grad school, or not out of grad school. Yeah. My year, we'll call it year 1.5. Sorry. Timeline's all messed up. So I go from the Pac-12 networks and then I go to Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation and I'm covering Stanford. And this was David Shaw, the legendary Stanford coach. It was his last year because he stepped down, obviously. And I remember no one was asking him any questions about the team's struggles. At this point, they were losing games. It looked like they were, which I mean, they did finish below 500 again. And it looked like at this time, I think it was before the Cal game, if I'm remembering correctly, the team was losing and looking uninspired. And you could just tell the fan base was out of it. The team was sort of out of it. It was just the vibes were down. It was like, okay, we're repeatedly getting punched in the face and like this is not going well. But as we all know, David Shaw was a legend of the game, a legend of the sport. He was one of the best coaches in college football. when he was at his peak, when Stanford's at his peak. And so I asked him if he felt like he should, like, if he still felt he was the right person for the job at Stanford. I was the first person to sort of ask a question like that year. And he would always take my questions, but it changed sort of the dynamic we had. Because in the weeks leading up to that, right, I hadn't asked him a question like that because at the time I didn't know if it was necessary. And then I sort of was just sort of taking the temperature of the program and talking to other people around college football. And it was like, yeah, it's time. Like Stanford is falling behind. And so I had to ask him the question because as a journalist, that was my job to sort of get into the unnecessary details, right? Like it's not everything is fun. Not everything is like, hey, Coach Prime, it's your birthday. Like, what are your birthday plans? Like, not everything is like that. Like sometimes you have to be like, your team went 4-8 last year. Obviously, it was an improvement. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't from the year prior, but your team went 4-8 and had major flaws. How do you plan on fixing those flaws? Those are questions that are fair. Now, I don't really know what the reporter that he shut down was going to ask because they didn't really get past like their greeting thing because he said, "How was your summer?" or something like that. And Coach Prime was like, "Why do you do that? Like, why do you talk to us like you like us?" And then at the same time, write about it. And it seemed like they were going to handle it in a private setting, which I hope there's some sort of conversation had because I think, and I've noticed this a lot with Colorado, is everyone takes everything personally. And I'm not going to pretend like, let me hold on real quick. A lot of the things that happen, like a lot of the opinions and sort of jabs at Colorado from most people or a lot of people are personal. But as a media member, theoretically, you're supposed to be unbiased. You're supposed to be impartial. You are supposed to be someone who is just discovering the facts. And if that is what the facts are, like if that is what we're trying to learn, like tell us about this new team, tell us why it's going to be better. I understand probably where the questions are from. Now, some of the articles that I've seen written were a little more on the harsher side. And I think when you write those articles, one, you're going to get views. So I think that's a motivation, right? I mean, that's kind of the world we live in. Everyone wants views and clicks and all that. And two, you know that it's probably going to change your relationship with the coach. And whether people like it or not, and I think this is where I kind of toe the line, if you will, because as someone who's in the media and like goes to press conferences all the time and is like, one, obviously you don't want to be the person that where a coach is like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you. Like it just is what it is. Like I went to a press conference, there was a new basketball coach, and I asked him a question, and I was hoping that he would go into more detail, but the way I phrased the question wasn't a good phrasing. So he just kind of hit me with a one-word answer and was like, okay, that's what you asked, right? And I was like, you're not wrong. So you have to really plan your attack well. And so, or not your attack, but you have to plan your questions well. And so I think I get from the reporter's perspective, like people want to know this information, but from Coach Prime's perspective, right? You don't have to answer these questions. I do think that in a way, though, it's gonna only people are only gonna turn up the heat when if there's a struggle. Like if Colorado gets off to a slow start, the questions are not gonna be kind. Like that, not in the sense of like they hate on Deion Sanders, but in the sense of like he is the most popular coach in college football. He is the most polarizing figure in college football. But if he struggles, people are going to be have a shorter, I guess they're not going to give him as many chances. We'll just call a spade a spade. It's Deion Sanders. People are going to be like, he should be done, or he's on the hot seat now. Do I think that's fair? No, but I do think that's how it's going to work, and I do think it's sort of an odd thing. I would like to see sort of a. I would like to see. I would like to see sort of a how do I put this? Like a little give and take there. Like I would have liked to see what the question was and how Deion Sanders responded to it. But I also get from Deion Sanders' perspective, he does not have to answer anyone's questions, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, it's part of the job. You get to ask questions, whatever you want, and I get to decide if I get to answer if I want to answer them or not. So I think a lot of people are worked up about it. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I think there's a fine line of being a media person um, and sort of understanding that your work is noticed. I'll never forget when Deion Sanders Jr., Bucky, posted one of my articles on Instagram. I thought it was really cool. I had written about something. I had written a story about I forgot what it was, but it wasn't me like bashing Colorado. I think it was just I think it was like about the transfer portal or something. And he posted my story on Instagram. And it was cool because it's like it's cool to see that they see our work, but at the same time, you know that they see your work. So it's like you can't be shocked if you have a story that's not in their favor and they don't feel inclined to talk to you, I guess is how I would conclude this. But it'll be very interesting to see if there's any sort of changes moving forward. But I do think Deion Sanders is not doing anything out of the ordinary. I think coaches dodge questions all the time. They'll say next question. Nick Saban had his infamous rat poison thing. Nick Saban, he yelled at Maria Taylor that one time, or Lane Kiffin. Every coach, Steve Sarkisian has had, who you name a coach, they have all had moments where they don't answer questions. And I do think that because it's Deion Sanders, there is like a little bit of a polarization factor to it. I guess you could call it. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the Julian Lewis recruitment. It has taken a major turn, but a weird one. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank you guys for all your support, all the kind messages I got. If you guys didn't know this, I got engaged yesterday. It's very exciting from my end, and I've received a lot of nice and DMs and sort of support from you guys. It's been really cool. Let's talk about the Julian Lewis recruitment. Enough about me. Let's talk about the 5-star quarterback, Julian Lewis, right? 24/7 sports analyst, recruiting analyst, Tom Loy, was talking about Julian's recruitment, which, as we all know, has taken quite a few twists and turns. He was committed to USC when they had no one. He was the face of the class. They were getting a lot of people. They lost some big recruits. And then all of a sudden it was like, he's committed to USC, but no one thinks he's going to stick around. And so it's like Auburn's in the mix, Colorado's in the mix, Indiana's, they're a puncher's chance, right? They have all these teams coming after him. And so it's like, oh gosh, what is going to happen? Well, it kind of appears two things that we need to know. And I think they both correlate, but Colorado has a big year ahead of them. We'll just put it this way. And this recruitment is going to be vital. So the first thing that we need to note, Hassan Longstreet, 5-star quarterback out of Corona, California, number 28 player in the country, 4th quarterback overall, number 1 player in the state of California. He is currently committed to Texas A&M. He also took visits to Auburn and has 31 offers. He's all that in a bag of chips, right? 6'1.5", big arm, can move. They could do everything that a coach wants. All of a sudden, I talked about this when this happened, USC is not only like, hey, Hassan, what's up, dude? They're like, hey, think about it this way. We're playing EA Sports College Football 25, the video game, and you're recruiting, and you're pretty close in the recruitment, but you're not in the lead. And all of a sudden, you're sending the house. All of a sudden, you're making a hard pitch where it's like, dude, look at us. We got the history. We got the championships. We got the facilities, which USC's facilities are, I feel like from what I've heard, hit and miss. But, they're selling everything. They're like Los Angeles, NIL, we got it here. And all of a sudden, USC's making a hard push for Hassan. And it's like, I still think they'd like to keep Julian Lewis because obviously Lincoln Riley sought him out and tabbed him as the quarterback that they wanted. There's a chance that they might not keep him. So what does this mean, though? So USC's after Hassan, and then Julian Lewis's recruitment is kind of up in the air, right? It's up in the open. Well, Auburn's pursuing Deuce Knight from Notre Dame, so they're kind of taking themselves out of the Julian Lewis sweepstakes. And so now it kind of seems like it's a Colorado, Indiana, obviously USC until he's not committed is in the mix. And Tom Loy thinks that Indiana is the favorite because of one Mr. Tino Sinceri. He is someone that Julian has a relationship with. He's someone that I think a lot of people, the name should sound familiar. because obviously Colorado has a Cincinnati on their team. Let me confirm their relation. I'm pretty sure they're related somehow. Um, but yeah, so realistically, one of his father is Sal Cincinnati, who's a defensive line coach, excuse me, at Colorado. But Tino started his career off at Florida State as a quality control analyst. Then went to Tennessee, then Alabama as a GA. Then he was at James Madison with the new Indiana coach. He was the quarterback's coach there, and now he's at now he's at James Madison again. Or excuse me, he's at Indiana with the Indiana coach. Excuse me, I was trying to get that sentence out. Where he's the quarterback's coach again and the co-offense coordinator, and he has, from what it seems like, a very, very deep-rooted relationship with Julian Lewis, and he's kind of getting Indiana into the thing, and then Kurt Singetti is in the mix as well. He's recruiting hard, so it kind of seems like it's coming down in Colorado and Indiana. I'm going to have Brian Smith from Locked On Network, our recruiting insider, come on the show. We're going to talk about it. But it's so interesting to really, really see that Julian Lewis is open to going anywhere, which means Colorado has a chance. Now it just means it's all about relationships. So which relationship is stronger, I think, is what it's going to come down to. Is his relationship with Tino stronger, or is it Coach Prime? And I think Colorado, Shador, Travis, they need to pull out all the stops. I don't care who it is. Everyone needs to pitch in, because this is your quarterback of the future we're talking about. If you are able to secure your quarterback of the future, oof, this program's cooking, because you get Julian Lewis, you're going to get other recruits. That's just how it goes. Players gravitate towards one another, and if you're able to get them, you will get others. Think of it as Moneyball. If you build it, they will come. And so this is Colorado trying to build it. It's just really interesting, because I think at one point they were kind of the favorite to flip them. Now it seems like it's Indiana with Colorado slightly under them. So this recruitment is going to go down to the wire. And we know this. I say this all the time. Until pen is put to paper, do not count out Coach Prime. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the AP poll. And Colorado got a vote. Seems pretty cool. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day. Make me your first listen of the day. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer and fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. So this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily, and there's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com, start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. The AP poll announced their preseason top 25, and Colorado got a vote. What does that mean? I don't know. I didn't know the guy who voted for them. Hadn't heard of him. I wasn't a Colorado guy. I do think it's interesting. But let me talk to you about Colorado and their ranking, right? I think there's a good chance they could be ranked at some point this year. An honest hand to God, I think they will be ranked. I don't know if it'll be after week one. I do think the first time we may see Colorado get some ranking considerations, because if they're not going to be in the top 25, which I don't think they are based off the AP poll, they'll probably be somewhere near it. Like they'll probably be in the 30s. If they beat North Dakota State, that's a pretty good win. North Dakota State was ranked as the number 2 team in the FCS behind South Dakota State. If they beat Nebraska on the road, Colorado is going to get ranked, and if they're not, they're going to be one of the top teams receiving votes. The problem with being ranked at the beginning of the year is you need other teams to lose, and usually top 25 teams, for the most part, they're scheduling cupcakes, so there's not many losses to be had, but doesn't mean it can't happen. If Colorado starts off 3-0, I can almost guarantee they will be ranked again. I just think they will. The buzz will be palpable. I think people will be excited. I think if they are 3-0, I think this year going 3-0 would be much more impressive than last year's 3-0, because North Dakota State, FCS power, Nebraska, rivalry game on the road with an elite quarterback recruit at the helm. So everyone says Nebraska is going to be a lot better. They have a really good defense, and they also have a really good quarterback, or they're supposed to have a good quarterback. We'll see. And then Colorado State, rivalry game on the road again. So winning in 2 hostile environments, beating 2 rivals and an FCS power. This isn't just like beating the Citadel or whoever. Like, this is North Dakota State is like the cream of the crop at the FCS level. So while I don't think Colorado will start the year ranked, I do think there is a path to them being ranked. You guys comment below. What do you think they'll be ranked? Is it 19, 20? Let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I also want to thank all you guys for the support and kind messages you have given me for my engagement. I really appreciate it. Next step in my life, I'm adulting, as they say. So I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys tomorrow. We're going to have some really exciting guests coming up. It's going to be awesome. So make sure to stay tuned. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow.